Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khatam biya wa sayyidil mursalin. A Meccan surah. There's just a few ayahs of it that are not Meccan. That's said to be not Meccan surahs, but it is considered generally to be a Meccan surah that was revealed just before. It is also one of the surahs of the different surahs that are categorized in the Quran. Surah Yusuf is part of the category of what is called Al-Qasas, the surahs that focus on stories of the earlier prophets and stories of righteous people and so on that has gone before, the stories that we find in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, gives us the stories of these earlier prophets that He tells us about, that He revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about them. They are not false stories. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are not made up stories. They are real incidents that took place, even if there are those people who do not believe such. They are real stories that took place before. And I know that there are those people who seek to discredit some of the stories, especially stories of the Bani Israel in Egypt. They try to discredit the story, but we go on Revelation because we know Revelation is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks the truth. So people's speculation of dhann does not replace haqq. Speculation does not replace truthfulness for us. And so the story of this is one of Al-Qasas, and this Surah Yusuf carries the name of Yusuf, and it is the only prophet is told in this story is Yusuf. So the surah contains only the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, and it is the longest story of any of the prophets. It is the longest story of any of the prophets that is told in a chronological manner. It's the only story and the longest that has been told in a chronological manner in the Quran. And so that we find that the story of Prophet Yusuf is not found in any other surah. His story is not found in any other surah in the Quran. You find his name mentioned in 2 or 3 other surahs. The name Yusuf, his name is mentioned when Allah is talking about prophets and mentioning prophets by name, and his name is mentioned, but his story is not told any other part of the Quran other than the Surah Yusuf. So inshallah, we'll just mention as I said, some of the main highlights without going into detail. The reasons or asbab al-nuzul for this Surah Yusuf, there are a couple that we mentioned, but the 2 main ones that I would mention quickly is that one report that the Sahaba came and asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, requested the Prophet to tell them some stories of the past, of the earlier peoples. And he told them the story of Surah Yusuf. And Allah revealed Surah Yusuf, and he told them the story. This is one narration. There's another narration that says that the Yahud, and both of them might not be contradictory. Both of them might be correct. That the Yahud, they've always been trying to test the Prophet ﷺ to try to prove that he is not who he said he is, that he's not the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they were against the Prophet ﷺ. So they would always bring up issues that only a prophet would know. Only a prophet would know. So they would bring him questions that if he's a real prophet, he'll be able to answer them. And if he's not a real prophet, he would not be able to answer them. So they used to do this because, of course, they had earlier scriptures from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and earlier prophets. So they had a lot of information that the average person of their time didn't have. They had a lot of information that the average person of their time didn't have, especially in the Arabian Peninsula, among the Arabs, which were not known to be literate people. They were not known to be literate people of the time. All right? So they raised the question to the Prophet ﷺ, why and how did Prophet Yaqub and his descendants wind up in Egypt? What happened? What happened? And so the surah Surah Yusuf was revealed to give the entire story. Allah start from the beginning and give the whole story. How they wound up in Egypt. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to this when he mentioned his stories mentioned at the beginning. He said, "Nahnu naqussu alayka ahsan al-qasas." We reveal to you the most best or the most beautiful of stories. Bima awhayna ilayka hadha al-Quran, and revealing this Quran to you, we have revealed in it some of the best and most beautiful stories. So Yusuf is one of those very beautiful stories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. It is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful story, and there's so much lessons that you can learn from it. So Yusuf, you can teach Surah Yusuf for a whole year. You can teach Surah Yusuf for a whole year and still do not exhaust the lessons to be taught from Surah Yusuf. And so it begins with Prophet Yaqub, right? Prophet Yaqub, who was the son of Prophet Ishaq or Jacob, who was the son of Prophet Ibrahim. All right? Prophet Ibrahim. So it's a whole line of prophets. Prophet Ibrahim, he was the father of Prophet Ishaq, and who was the father of Prophet Yaqub, who was the father of Prophet Yusuf. All right? So they were all prophets there coming. And so Prophet Yaqub, he had 12 sons, and from them descended the 12 nations or tribes of Bani Israel. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to them as the Bani Israel, 12 tribes or nations of the Bani Israel, descended from Prophet Yaqub. His last two sons, Yusuf and Benjamin. Yusuf and Benjamin, they were his youngest sons, and they were shaqiqan, they were from the same mother, and so to take care of the animal, because back in those days, animal, the civil, they think him as a slave, and they could make some money from him, and so they took him with them, and they took him to Egypt, and of course they sold him in the market, right? Because they thought that he would be good merchandise, and they sold him in the market of Egypt. The chief minister of the king, right? It's called Aziz the Aziz, the chief minister of the king. He purchased Yusuf. He saw Yusuf. He saw him as he didn't think that he was a slave. He saw him. He was a beautiful, handsome young boy, and he thought that he could benefit from him, and so he purchased him and took him home. Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. And in the amazement and wonder at Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, they wound up, instead of cutting their fruit, they wound up cutting their hands. And then the wife of the Aziz, when she noticed, she was looking, and when she stepped out, and then she chided them for, yes, you talking about me, look at you. You know, look at what you're doing. Look at you. You know, and you trying to, you know, to talk, to chide me and talk about me. And so she chided them for what is it? So at this point now, the word is out. The word is out all over the city, and the Aziz house looks bad. And so to remove, but he knows that Yusuf alayhi salam is innocent. He knows that Yusuf alayhi salam is innocent. But to throw, to take shame off his house and to throw the scandal off and make it seem that Yusuf was actually guilty, he put Yusuf in prison. So Yusuf went to prison not because he was guilty, but just to throw shame off the house of the Aziz. Right? This was a wrong thing that the Aziz did. He knew that Yusuf was not thing, because this was disproof. It so happened that when Yusuf entered the prison, that two young men from who worked in the castle of in the palace of the king entered at the same time. One was his butler and one was his cook, his baker. And so they entered the prison at the same time as Yusuf. And they observed Yusuf. They could see Yusuf, his character and his behavior and his conduct and everything about Yusuf. So they realized that Yusuf is a good man. They realized Yusuf is a good man, and he couldn't be what the people were saying about him. Would not be true. So they observed him, and while they're in the prison, after some time, both of them had a strange dream. Each one of them had a strange dream. And so they decide to come to Yusuf. They turn to Yusuf. Why they turn to Yusuf is, Inna naraka min al-muhsinin. We can see that you're a righteous man. We can see you're a good man. You are a righteous man. So we come to you with this thing. Could you help us? And so Yusuf told them, yes, I can explain, because by that time Yusuf had already had received his commission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he became a young man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him his commission to prophethood, and gave him the gift to explain dreams. So he already had been commissioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be a prophet. So he said, sure, I'll tell you before your meal come, I'll tell you what it is. And then Yusuf once they were there, with their hearts and their minds and their ears open to hear what Yusuf had to tell them about their dream, Yusuf used the opportunity, like a good da'iyah, like a good as a prophet, as prophets are the best du'a. You know, they eventually launched into his mission of giving them dawah. And so he gave them dawah, and he told them who he was, that he came from the line of the prophets, and he told them who he was, so that they would know his genealogy. He was not some slave, he was not some ordinary person. Who he was the son of a prophet, and so on. He gave them the dawah, inviting them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and away from the shirk, because Egypt was an idolatrous country at the time. Egypt was idolatrous at the time. And so he then told them after giving them dawah, he told them what was the results of the story. This one, you will be executed, you'll be crucified, and the birds will eat from your head, and you will return, you'll be pardoned by the king, and you'll go back to serving the king. So the baker, right, the cook, he was executed, and the butler went back to the king and to serve him. And Yusuf told him, because he knew that he was the one to would be saved, and so he told him, please mention me to your master. When you go back, mention me. Tell him about me. Tell him about me. But of course, once he got back into his position in the king's service, he completely forgot about Yusuf. He completely about Yusuf, and Allah says that for labitha fi sijni bidna sin. So he spent almost 10 years in prison. Yusuf spent almost 10 years in prison, just there. It so happened that after this period that the king himself now had a dream. He had a strange dream, and he presented to his courtiers and advisors to explain. Could you all explain this dream? This is a very strange dream. Could you explain it? And of course, none of them could. None of them had the ability to interpret dreams, so they couldn't explain. It was at that moment that the butler remembered Yusuf. At that moment, he remembered Yusuf. He says, yes, you know, that's what he told. Then he told the king about Yusuf. You know, he told him all about Yusuf, how we met him and who he's there and what and what and what. So he gave him a background on Yusuf. So the king gave him permission to go and meet with Yusuf and get ask him to interpret the dream. So he came, and Yusuf interpreted the dream, and not only did he interpret the dream correctly and tell him what it is, but he also gave advice on how, you know, it could be things could be implemented. He gave them the advice. So he interpreted the dream and gave them additional advice. So the king, when he came back and told the king was ecstatic. The king was ecstatic because he got an explanation for the dream, a practical explanation, and he got advice. So now he's impressed with Yusuf. He hasn't met him yet, but he's impressed with Yusuf. He's ecstatic with Yusuf, and he's impressed with Yusuf. So he says, go bring him. Go and bring him to me, and release him from prison, and tell him, come see me. When the messenger came back to Yusuf, Yusuf refused to leave the prison. He refused to leave. He says, I'm not going to leave until you investigate this matter concerning the wife of the Aziz and these women folk and the accusations that they brought against him. Until you, in other words, Yusuf refused to leave the prison until his name is cleared. You're going to clear my name first, I'm not coming. I mean, some people will jump at the opportunity to go to the jail, but Yusuf is not coming out unless he gets his name cleared. So when the messenger came back to the king launched his own investigation into the matter, and when all the women folk, the society women, he gathered them, and the wife of the Aziz, all the society women says, look, we don't know anything wrong with this man. We don't know anything bad about him. You know, he's a good man as far as we know. We don't know anything bad about him. So then the Aziz wife, she had to speak up. She has no choice but to speak up. So because she knows the society women knows what she did. So because she had confessed to them. So then she spoke up and says, well, look, yes, he is honest, he's good, he's a true person. I'm the one who messed up. Messed up. So this, of course, cleared Yusuf. Yusuf now come out smelling like a rose out of this prison, and the king is enamored by him. The king is enamored by Yusuf, so he brings Yusuf close to him. He appoints him to be the chief minister. He appoints him to his chief minister and chief advisor. And at the advice of Yusuf alayhi salam, he appointed Yusuf as not just only chief advisor, but chief minister over all the stores and everything in the land. So that he became the heirs, he became the ears for Yusuf. Whatever Yusuf said, Yusuf had his ear. He says, Anta ladaya makina al-yawma makinun amin. You are firmly established in a secure position with me today. You know, astakhlisu li nafsi. You personally with me every day. So Yusuf had, and there are a number of Israeliyat that says that Yusuf became like, he took over everything. The king just stepped back and left Yusuf to run everything. And he took all the advice from Yusuf, whatever Yusuf said, he followed the advice of Yusuf. So Yusuf took the charge of everything, and the king just sat back and let Yusuf run things. Wow. That is according to Israeliyat. So when the king's dream came to fulfillment, as Yusuf had explained, when his dream came to fulfillment, the land is full of famine. There is famine all over the land. And only Egypt is prepared for the famine. No one else, no place else is prepared for this famine. Egypt alone, based on the advice and instructions and directions of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, they are prepared for this famine. They have enough stores of food, of grain and so on, for food for themselves, and enough that they can sell. So, because they're well prepared for it. So, of course, the word goes out all around that, you know, there's food in Egypt. So people is coming from all the cities and towns and villages and wherever to Egypt to get food, to buy food from Egypt. Because there's the only place that have food. So of course, the word reached to the family of Yusuf, who they were off in another area in the desert. They were in the Badia, they were Bedu, and so there now the father sent them his 10 bigger brothers, sent the 10 of them to Egypt to get food. And the 10 of them, they came. He of course kept bringing them in at home, and so he sent the 10 big ones, and they came to Egypt to get food. The moment that they entered the court, right? The moment that they entered the court of Yusuf alayhi salam, Arafah, he recognized them. The moment they entered, he recognized them, that these were his brothers. But they did not recognize him. They did not recognize him. They didn't know who he was. I mean, because they know as a little boy, they threw him in a well, and some people took him, and that's it. Story finished. So they don't expect to see him this as the Aziz, the top man in Egypt, you know, over all this stuff that they gotta come now to. So yeah, it didn't occur to them. So even if there was any similarity, they put it on their head because they can't imagine that this would be the case. So they did not recognize Yusuf at all. Means they didn't recognize it at all. But of course, Yusuf alayhi salam, he recognized them immediately. And so Yusuf, he welcomed them, right? He welcomed the people, he welcomed his brothers, and he treated them well. He treated them well. He was very gracious in treating them. He didn't treat them, and he didn't let them know who he was. He didn't say anything to them, but he just treated them so well. Really gracious with them, despite what they've done to him. He was gracious in treating them. I mean, without digressing too much on that, there's a really beautiful point that, you see, people, treat you, he treat them in the most horrible manner. Treat them in the most horrible manner. But he doesn't harbor hatred, animosity, and I mean, it's serious, you can understand how beautiful Yusuf was. He was not just a handsome person, but he's absolutely beautiful in character. He's absolutely beautiful in character. You don't find it. It's rare. When you find this quality in a person, it's rare you find a quality like that in a person. One person that you can think of immediately today in our context was Nelson Mandela. When he came out after 25 years, right? They kept him for 25 years or 27 years or something like that. 27 years, right? It's 25 or 27 years. They kept him on Robben Island, a prison that was on Robben Island. They're cut off from everybody. And they kept him there for 27 years of his life. He went in as a young man. Young, brilliant lawyer he was. He was a young, brilliant lawyer. And he opposed the apartheid thing. They kept him for 27 years and they treat him terrible. They treat him absolutely terrible. And in the prison. So when they're releasing him, everybody and the cameras of the world were on him. Because they think he's going to come out and he's going to really, and he walks out and he's so gracious. He's so gracious in his behavior, in his mannerisms, and his speech. He's not bitter. He's not bitter at all. There's no animosity. There's no bitterness in his speech. And the world became enamored with Nelson Mandela. Right? The world became enamored with him. One story said, a thing about him, one story I read of him, his thing, he said that he told them, after he became from prison, he became president. Just like Yusuf alayhi salam. That's why he comes to mind, because Yusuf now came from prison to the top man in the country. So Nelson Mandela is why his story came to my mind at the same time. And so he became president of South Africa. And he said in his thing, he told his people he wanted to go to the town and the city and he want to eat. He want to go to one of the restaurants in the town. And so they prepared the security for him, secured him to take him as president. So he went to a restaurant in the city to eat. And when he was there, he saw this man sitting on one of the tables by himself eating, and he told his guards, go and tell that man come and join us at our table. So they went and told the man to come and sit at this table and eat. The man came and he sat, and the man is trembling all the time. The man is trembling, you see him trembling, And the man finishes and he leaves. So the guard turned to after him, and says, this man was absolutely terrified, of you. And he was trembling all the time. What happened? He's sick or something seemed to be wrong with him. Mandela says, no, I know what's wrong with him. You see, when I was in the prison in Robben Island, they used to treat us really badly. And when we asked for water, this man used to come and pee on me. This man would come and would urinate on me. And so, that's why he was trembling. Because he thought that I'm going to retaliate and lock him up or something. Wow. Graciousness. Really. So this is Muslim, that you can imagine Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam as a prophet. You can just multiply that. This graciousness of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. So he treated them really graciously. and he gave them extra stuff, extra to what they were came to buy. He gave them extras, and he told his servants to hide their merchandise in their bags. Hide the merchandise in the bag that they bought to barter with. Hide it in their bags so they wouldn't know. So they felt very, very good. They felt ecstatic at the reception and how he treated them, and so they went home really happy to their father, and speaking very highly of what happened and how they were treated, how well they were treated, and this and that. They really thing and speaking to the father about it. But before they left, he told them, because they told him his story. They told him what he asked them the questions. Like he knew what to ask them, because he knew them. They didn't know him, but so he knew all about it. So they okay, bring your brother. You gotta, how come 10 of you? You say there's 12 of you. How come only 10 of you there's here? So they said, well, one of them, he's died, and the youngest one, he's home with our father. So he said, well, look, you bring him next time. And if you don't bring him, I'm not going to give you no extra food. So they told the father what he said, that you have to send him with us. The father, of course, he doesn't, Yaqub, he's not happy with that. But when they opened their bags for their stuff, they realized that all the merchandise that they took to barter with is all back in their bag. It was there. Right? So, they realized, they told the father, look, you have to send him with us. You have to send him with us. And after much protests and so on, eventually Yaqub reneged and relented, and decided he will send him. But he made them make an oath, a solemn oath by Allah, that you're gonna bring him home. A solemn oath. You're gonna bring him home. You're not gonna come back like how you did with Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. So they all swore by Allah, they're gonna do it. And so he told them, he advised them that when they go to the city, he says, do not enter, لا تدخلوا من باب واحد. لا تدخلوا من باب واحد. Don't enter all you from the same gate, right? وَدْخُلُوا مِنْ أَبْوَابٍ مُتَفَرِّقَةٍ. But divide into groups and enter from different gates. That in case that there's something, because now he's apprehensive. He didn't give this advice before because there was nothing to be apprehensive about. But now he's apprehensive, now because they're taking the youngest son, Benjamin. And so he's apprehensive that anything, so he says, enter separate gates, in case any, things happening that, to see if you're going to, and now take precaution. Take precaution. And this is an important point here that he mentions. It's an important point in relation to this, that he emphasizes this important point to them. He says, ما أغني عنكم من الله شيء. ما أغني عنكم من الله شيء. You cannot avail you against the decree of Allah in any way. In other words, إن الحكم إلا لله, because the hukum belongs to Allah. The decision and decree is in the hands of Allah. عليه توكلت, I have put my trust in Him. وعليه فليتوكل المؤمنون. So let those who put their trust on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, he's making it clear to them that all universal causes operate under the perfect knowledge and power and will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing can happen without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yes, you give your oath, but nothing can avail you against Allah's decree. If Allah decree different, then there's nothing, nothing you can do. But you should take precaution. You take precaution. But whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides, that is what will happen. So now that the final determination in all matters is in the hands of Allah. And this is one of the points that from this surah that really that we as believers should always bear in mind. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always in charge.
Right.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always in, despite what you see going on. Despite whatever's happening. Right? And everything looks crazy and everything looks whatever. Allah is in charge. He knows what is going on and He knows why it's happening and He knows everything about it. And so we trust Allah. That's what He said. Trust Allah. Trust Allah. This way you follow up with trust. You take your precautions, but you trust Allah. Take your precautions. And so he is teaching his sons that yes, you take precaution, but taking precaution, taking the necessary precautions, which we call ittikhad al-asbab, right? That's what we call ittikhad al-asbab, taking the means, seeking the means available, necessary means. It does not prevent you from whatever Allah SWT has decreed. Whatever Allah decree will happen, and this is where the Prophet ﷺ said, when it happens, when whatever happens, whatever is the outcome, you take the precaution. You know, as the popular saying goes, tie your camel. Right? This is not a hadith, this is a saying. Alright? It's just a popular saying. Tie your camel. Alright? So and watawakkal ala Allah. Alright? The results is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whenever it happens, the results in it, that's what the Prophet says, that you don't say, when it happens, you say, qad the effect turned out different to how you plan for it. Don't say, lawla. If only had done this, or if only had done that, if only had done it this way, or if only this, and if only, and if only. Don't say that, lawla. Don't say that. He says you should say قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Allah has decreed and Allah does whatever He wills. Allah has decreed and He does whatever He wills. So this is the decree of Allah and I'm satisfied with it. قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Right? He said لَوْلَا تَفْتَوْ بَابُ الشَّيْطَانِ. He said lawla, open the gates to the shaitan, to put all kind of nonsensical ideas into your head. To think that you gotta control or change the outcome when you have no power to change the outcome. Alright? So you put all kind of wrong ideas in your head. Alright? So you open the door, don't open your mind to the shaitan by saying if only, if only, if only. Say, and you submit and resent and resign yourself to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawakkal ala Allah. This is a very, very beautiful point. And so that they did as their father told them, and they entered. And when Yusuf alayhi salam saw his brother, he's so happy, he's excited, and he took his brother from them, to his private room, and he talked to him, and he says, "Look, I'm your brother, I'm your big brother, I'm your brother and stuff." And he told him, and he connected with his brother. Now he decides he's going to keep his brother. He's not going to let him go back. Right? Because he knows this fellow's ain't good. This fellow's not good. So he's not going to allow them to go out with them. So what he did, he created a plot. He told his people, take the main drinking cup of the king, the cup that he drinks from, put it in the bag of Benjamin. And so when they leave, they call out, you tribal, you people are thieves. So they say, what man that tough they doing? What is your loss? What happened? They says, well, Suwa' al-Malik, the drinking cup of the king, what you stole it? And they said, no, me, I'm not sorry, king. You know that we're not thieves, and we didn't come for that. We didn't come to make facade in the earth or anything like this. This it is not so. So they said, okay, what would be the punishment for the one who we find our stuff in their stuff? They said, well, you know, he'll be his own punishment. You can take him. Yeah, you can take him. Whoever is crazy enough to do something like that, you can take him. He is his own punishment. So of course, they started with the other bags until they reached the bag of Yusuf, of Benjamin, and then they pull up the cup. See? Now this, you know, it throw them throw a wrench in their plan. I mean, they completely don't know what to do now. And they started to beg him. They started to beg Yusuf, please, you know, he has a very old father who is really sick, and you know, and you can't really take him. Take one of us. Take one of us in his place. Yusuf says, no. He's the one he's the guilty one. I gotta take him. Right? And they negotiated and argued until Khalas, they were not able to convince him. But in this process, while they're arguing, so you know, so in Sarak, if he stole, you know, if he stole, then his brother before did the same thing. Talk about Yusuf, right? They're talking about Yusuf, so they're slandering Yusuf now. Right? They're slandering him. I don't even know that they're talking to Yusuf. They're slandering. So they're slandering him to his face. Right? They're slandering him to his face. And Yusuf is very, very, very resolute. I mean, it takes a lot to be like that. Yeah, they did him all this stuff, and now to his face they slander him. They slander him, and he's still resolute. He's still resolute, you know, still resolute. And he kept his son, he's kept his brother with him, and then they began to argue among themselves, because what are we going to do? You know, what are we going to do? We made an oath to our father. What's going to happen? What are we going to do? So the biggest one, the biggest brother of them, he says, look, I mean, I can't face my father. I can't face my father. The second time. You know, the second time with the son. I can't face it. So look, y'all go home and tell our father, look, tell him what happened. Tell him that we really didn't know what happened, but this is what happened. And you know, we had not, so this is it. But I'm gonna stay here and nothing, because you know you don't want to go and leave Benjamin there and go back to the father empty-handed. And so he decided to stay behind, and he sent his 9 brothers back home to the father. And of course, the father is very, you know, is very let down by what happened. And so inshallah, I think, you know, our time is up. We complete our time. We did a view, inshallah. So we continue, inshallah, from ayah 69, inshallah, in our next session, inshallah, next Sunday, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless all the brothers and sisters, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us and help us to continue to be safe and to be healthy, inshallah. And that's how we continue our session, inshallah. Subhanaka wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.